What's up, people? Welcome back for another video. It's vlog number 61. I didn't do anything to celebrate yesterday for vlog number 60, and because I didn't really feel too good yesterday, so I basically couldn't even really be asked. I'm actually surprised that it ended up being an hour and a half worth of video, because I really thought it would have been less than that. But that's because I didn't really feel like talking, at least not much. But I still managed to get some words out. So I guess I felt like talking at least a little bit. Anyway, today is probably going to be another day just like yesterday of I'm going to be sitting here sort of looking at the computer a lot and just looking at TikTok. Because yeah, that's what I ended up doing yesterday. Looking at TikTok, looking at looking at YouTube videos. Just staying in the house. Sort of getting used to the idea that I'm just going to be staying in again. Except now I'm not just like watching TikTok live and going live on TikTok. Now I've got my YouTube video as well. And I'm definitely putting the YouTube video above TikTok live in. I'm not such a big fan of doing the TikTok live. I kind of liked it for a bit. And then at some point I was like, I've had enough of that. I can see myself going back to it when I'm sort of like up for it, when I can be bothered with all like the what comes along with it. But you know, I'm definitely going to be still pushing along with the daily YouTube vlog, which is what you're watching now. And yeah, that's it really. I could tell you about what's going on around, and man, it's not a lot, right? I got some books and been reading a little bit of them here and there. And then apart from that, I'm just like existing pretty much, like sleeping, eating, keeping myself, mentally stimulated with watching things and everything like that. I guess that's become the new normal. But I find myself still thinking a little bit at the time, like, is this it? Is this all it is now? Like, is this life? But I think that phrase, like I just said, the new normal, it's like that for everyone now. Like just spending more time alone, just being on devices, like chatting with people more through the tech side of things, and not so much out and about and everything. Not that I don't like to be out and about, because I do a lot, but I gotta have the dough to be able to keep moving, because I don't like to stop anywhere. So I've got to be able to keep moving, and you got to have money to do that. You either got to pay for your transport, or you got to pay for your places to stay and everything. And all that shit's in the works now, and it's gonna be coming out pretty dope with like situations coming on pretty soon. And yeah, it's gonna be looking cool. It's gonna be looking good. It's gonna be looking all right, and I'm looking forward to that. I think it's gonna be pretty sick. But I'm also just like now just remaining consistent with the content. I'm not overthinking it. Whereas I feel like for a bit of time there, I was just thinking about it so hard. Like, I've got to make this into something, like, I don't know. I guess I've got Mr. Beast in my head, and I'm like, yo, I've got to make this fucking shit awesome. But more than just that, like, it's just me. It's just that's what it is. That's the whole thing, right? It is what it is. And it's like now this is what everyone's doing. So it's like no one's paying attention to anyone unless they're catching attention for whatever reasons they're catching attention, and then they're getting bigger. But it's like almost everyone's having a go at doing this, what I'm doing, and so it's nothing out of the ordinary. It's not unusual, and in fact, it's very very much just the way things are done by everyone. Like, well, not everyone, but more often than not, people are on TikTok and on YouTube, and that's now where people hang out when they're not with their pals in their life and everything. And I actually think it's sick, and it's so good for like being able to separate yourself from everyone you know, and then put yourself into like a mix with random people that you don't know, and then just see actually what that does to you. And that actually seems like, I would say, quite an incredible effect on your actual mentality and everything. And better than what I thought, Like, everyone's talking about the detrimental side effects of social media and everything, but it's like no one's talking about what's so great about it. And I think there's lots of things to say that are great about it. And I'm spending so much time on there, specifically on YouTube. So I'm spending so much time on YouTube. How can I say that it's, having detrimental side effects if I'm so already like into it, Because I like it. I'm not going to pretend like I don't. It's like I spent.
Yo, what's up, people? I'm back here for another video.
That's yesterday's video. It's just finished rendering, but yeah, I'll finish it here. But I'm not gonna be able. It's not like I can pretend that I don't like it when I do. Because how long have I been watching YouTube now? Like every day. It's been 10 years. Like, man, the time spent doing it says everything. I spent a lot of time there, man. Anyway, I'm gonna stop upload this video from yesterday. Anyway, so welcome to today's video again, and it's what is it, 61? So I don't know what to say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. There is nothing left to learn but this, but this. There is nothing left to learn but this, but this. There is nothing left to learn but this, but this. There is nothing left to learn but this, but this. There is nothing left to learn but this, but this. There's nothing left to learn but this, but this. There's nothing left to learn but this, but this. There's nothing left to learn but this, but this. There's nothing left to learn but this, but this. There's nothing left to learn but this, but this. There's nothing left to learn but this, but this. There's nothing left to learn but this, but this. The vlog is no longer going to be my place to complain, but instead, the place to showcase the pure creation. I'm about to make some shit happen. Cause I'm a go-getter. So I'm on TikTok again. Gone back to using it a lot more. Remembered how good it is. Put up a TikTok, just saying one word, and I like the idea of that. So it's a working concept. Good. Started thinking about when I was reading books on TikTok Live. I thought, man, my Jimi Hendrix book, I should just sit and read some of that. And then I thought, like, nah, I'm not going to do that on TikTok Live. I'll do it on my vlog. And then I just thought, nah, I'm not going to do that. But, I don't know, I kind of want to. I'll read a tiny bit, I'll see how it feels. Just a tiny bit. His was hand to mouth, often homeless existence, although not so very different from much of his childhood. I like opening the books, man, but what do? It's not TikTok nor YouTube, man. A book. It's good. It is good. But TikTok and YouTube, man. They're not better, they just cover more dimensions, like visual, hands-free, everything, you know? When I get back to the books, I'll be glad. My voice, man, it does this little breaking thing. When I get back to the books, I'll be glad to be doing it again. I like doing it. I mean, when I say doing it, I mean like reading books, you know? I like reading books. But, you know, it's just that TikTok and, like I was saying, TikTok and YouTube is just so much more, I don't know, fast pace, everything just. But I do like the way that like writing is done and everything. It's just, I don't know how to explain it, you know. I don't want to be thinking like that, you know. But it's there. It's the idea. Like, yeah, TikTok and YouTube is alright, but books, yeah, I like them. I do, man. I do like them. What is the situation when you just can't TikTok and you can't watch TikTok or YouTube? I don't know. Because then you'd be like, yeah, some books. But, oh man, I don't know. I'm really liking TikTok right now. It's been so good. So, I have no desire to go back to real life. TikTok is actually like real life version 2.0 anyway. There's extras. I guess YouTube is as well, kind of. Is this the metaverse? In life, there always seems to be two dimensions that exist simultaneously. There's one over here where everything's going well, and there's one over here where it's not. Somehow these both exist together and make up what is going on inside our minds. In truth, is anything good or bad? Or is it just what you think about it? Just as it starts going well, then you think it's not. Just as it's not, then you think it is. What is that all about? Can't it just stay like one? Can't it just stay one way? Would I even want it to stay one way? Or would it just be not long before I'm looking for something else? It's hard to answer that. Good morning. After a nice long sleep, it is 11:30 a.m. I'm tired. I've got to brush my teeth. I'm gonna lay down for a bit more. I'm not making any coffee this morning. I'm not sure I can even get up without coffee. I think I'm gonna have to make some. Yeah, let's get on with that. I've been having quite depressing dreams. When I say I've been having them, I mean just in this sleep that I've just had. I've just awoken from. And when I say depressing, I mean just dreams of people giving me bad news. Telling me about things that have happened that sadden me, that make me feel small and inadequate. But I do realise that they are but dreams, not real. Still, they do affect the psyche, they do affect the mind, whether they are real or not. Something I've been thinking about recently is reputation destruction. And I've been wondering, why do people gravitate towards that as a way to attack another person? I think largely it's just an intentional way of attempting to upset somebody. But the question is, why would you want to upset somebody? And I think the answer to that is, if a person has been upset themselves in some way, they then try to find justification for why other people deserve to be upset in the same way. Kind of like, well, I had to go through that, so you should have to go through that too. As if fairness should extend to all negative experiences, and as if fairness should or even could exist. I'm highly sceptical as to whether fairness can exist. But popularity and public support is not unanimous, and it never will be. Those who delude themselves into believing they have the unequivocal unanimous support of other people, quote unquote, are just those who are yet to be naively awoken to the reality that that's not true. And the reason for that is because what is popular and the ideas that are held by people who are popular vary. There's a lot of variation in opinion amongst popular people. The idea of popular people is itself questionable. What makes up a popular person? Well, I suppose nowadays the metric or the measure that people use in order to determine someone's popularity is the number of their social media followers. I can see one immediate issue with using this is that a lot of those people that are following them are not real. They're accounts that are paid for. To make them look more popular than they are. But why would a person want to look popular? Well, the idea is that that is what makes you attractive to a potential mate. And I would say that is the one second. That is one of the primary factors that determines and drive. That is one of the primary factors that determines decision making. But anyway, people are becoming less stupid now and less ghoulish. I think the reason for that is they've realised that it creates suffering for themselves. If I had a job, I would still vlog. If I had a job, I would still be on TikTok. If I had no job, I would still vlog. If I had no job, I would still TikTok. The fact that I am doing my YouTube or doing my TikTok is not related to, in any way, either having or not having a job. I would still be doing it regardless of whether I did or not. Now the question is, well, do I or don't I have a job? And the answer is, I do and I don't. The next question is, well, what does that mean? It's either you do or you don't, isn't it? And I say, no, it's not. It could be both, it could be neither. And it is both, and neither. I do and I don't have a job. And I also am neither of those. What is neither? Well, there's no words for that, is there? Big zero. Alright, so I'm going live on TikTok right now. Here is what that looks like. You can see me, you can see the camera. Wow, that is a pretty cool shot. I've not been on live on TikTok for quite a while. I would say months. So last time I was live on it, I was reading my book that I was reading at the time. I was reading that to the people. Just looking at my boiler because the water pressure. I don't know what happened to the pressure. I turned the tap on and it was like really low. I don't know why. I guess I may as well go live on TikTok. If I'm just sitting here and I don't know, I have no one to talk to or whatever, I guess I may as well be interacting with people on there, or at least having the live open so that I can interact with people on there if I want to. I don't know. I don't know. Oh well. I've only got to wait 3 days until I get money now. I might just check my account just to see if anything's gone in early, but probably hasn't. I'm going to take a bath in a minute. I ran the bath, then forgot about it. Started watching TikToks, went on TikTok live. I made this YouTube video. Then I went upstairs and realised it was completely full. Whoops. But it's okay, it didn't overflow, it's fine. Thankfully, the overflow is functioning well enough. But anyway, yeah, I need some fresh clothes on. Don't know if I'm going to go out today. I might try another day of just staying in and see how that goes. I can always just do exercise inside again. Alright, I've just had a bath. Lovely jubbly. I kind of want to go out for a bit. Been in for a good while now. It's 1:38 p.m. I think I should go out just for a walkabout. I just can't really be bothered. Or maybe I can. I don't know if I can or not. Yeah, I think I can. Yeah, I definitely think I can. I think I just have to try and lose the idea that there's somewhere specific that I need to go, or it has to be for a certain length of time, or anything like that. Obviously, none of that's true. I don't have to go anywhere specific. I don't have to be out for any specific length of time. I could just go out and not really think about it any more than that. Maybe I should do that. I don't really want to do that now thinking about it. Or I do and I don't. Oh. Yeah. I'm still flip-flopping. But you know what? I reckon I'm going out. Just for a short one. And if a short one turns into a longer one, then so be it. But I'm only planning for a short one. And I've got nowhere I really need to go. And I've got no money to spend. So there's no like imperative reason to go out. And there's no sort of leisurely activity that I can take part in. But that doesn't mean that I can't go out and just have a good time just walking. Because it is just refreshing just for a change of scenery and a bit of fresh air, a bit of sunlight. And, well, I need to find a reason to believe that I don't need a reason. And once I find that, then it all becomes very simple. Because when I stop needing reasoning, that is when I can simply just say, this is what I want to do, and so that's why I'm doing it. And there's no real need to explain that any more than that, really. What do I really need to say? Well, I want to go for a walk. What's the answer? Okay, go for a walk then. Obviously, that's the answer. Why would anyone try and say, well, you shouldn't go for a walk, or you can't go for a walk?
Why not? Of course I can. There's no reason that I can't. So that means that I can. It really is that straightforward. What I actually most definitely could do is I could take some board games and some books to the charity shop. And that would actually be a worthwhile endeavour to do. I could also see what my friends are up to. And could see if they want to hang out with me. That wouldn't be so bad either. But I'll figure all this out once I'm outside. I need to get myself outside first. I've stuck 2 board games in my bag, and there's 2 books in there as well. So there is one thing I can do. I can take those to the charity shop, drop them off. I could, when I do that in the charity shop, I could actually ask them about whether they have any volunteering positions available, because that will give me something to do in the short term. That is a good idea. Yeah, I might do that. I do remember when I first moved here, it was kind of like a nice smell in the air that I used to like. It might be a seasonal thing, because I don't really smell it right now. So maybe that'll come back soon. I don't know. It could be to do with the blossoming spring. That does bring a lot of smells. But I do just remember breathing in the air and being like, ah, oh, lovely. And thinking this was like a really good place to live. I've obviously come a long way since then in terms of the feelings that I have about living here, because now I'm ready to leave and I want to go back to being in the big city, London again. The thing that I really like about London is just the pace, the relentless pace, and I would say it's much less common to have such like judgmental attitudes, sort of small-minded opinion, short-sightedness, and inability to see the bigger picture. Like, success is far more celebrated there, and a lot of the people that live where I am now, success isn't even a concept they can understand. It's very odd. I've sort of ranted about this before, but it's like no one has a real sense of direction. No one really pictures a future ahead of them that's worth living for or progressing towards. Whereas that is just so common in London. That's just, everybody's got some kind of goal, some kind of dream, some kind of vision that they're pursuing. And that's a big part of what creates the culture of striving. And I feel like really no one really tends to strive here towards anything. Or if they do, it's a very sort of like short-term goal. There's no real picture of the future, like what's coming years ahead, years down the line. They've got no plans for like where they want to end up, who they want to be. And I'd just like to be back in the place where there's excitement, and that to me is what gives me motivation. The fact that people can see a future ahead of them that's better than where they are, and they're working towards that. To me, that's motivation. And I much prefer to be constantly motivated than to be demotivated. I think having spent so much time in a place, it's like eventually the attitudes of the people get to you. And when it eventually sort of got to me, after several years, that's when I started going, No, I'm not having this. I'm not doing that. I'm not letting these people bring me down. I actually have a goal. I actually have a vision. And I really want to pursue that. And if anyone tells me that that's not worthwhile, well, I gotta leave them behind, because I'm not doing it for them, I'm doing it for me, you know? Just been into town. Dropped off the books and board games at a charity shop. I think it's RSPCA charity shop. I asked them if they were looking for any volunteers. They said no. So I said, all right. Walked out of there. Walked through town. Pretty bad vibe. Seems like the stupid people are out again, creating the bad vibes. It's Chorley Town Centre. It's always really a horrible atmosphere. Very hostile, very unpleasant. So I'm just gonna head back towards the car and then head home. Yeah, it's a funny thing, because I think the people who live here, they think it's like nice or whatever. It just seems horrendous to me. It's like people with cancer that are like, oh, I'm doing great, you know? It's like, you don't look well. It's like the whole vibe of the place is just dead. Really, like, unpleasant. Yeah, and the people just generally are seem very sort of low IQ. Stupid, not very intelligent. It's quite unnerving, but they're quite delusional in their arrogance. They don't seem to know. They don't seem to realise what is actually happening. Yeah, so delusional arrogance combined with just stupidity, low levels of intelligence. That's what's creating the bad vibe. And it does seem to be all pervasive, or at least very common. I'm not sure when people are going to start to actually open their eyes, but their senses just aren't functioning right now. Like, they're not well. Physically, there's a lot of people that are just not very well, but they're very arrogant and they think they're doing great. It's quite odd. So yeah, less and less time is going to be wasted on going into that particular town centre, because there's nothing really in it for me. It's not worthwhile. It's a very just dull, negative atmosphere, unpleasant, unfriendly, unkind, stupid, arrogant. Just creates a very negative atmosphere, very unpleasant. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. If the people weren't so stupid, there is a chance that I might have stayed here. I might have wanted to carry on living here, but they've not changed at all in like the 5 years that I've been here. If anything, they've just continued to expose their stupidity even more than they did before. But it's really the atmosphere that's got to be what changes, and that's going to take some real internal changes taking place amongst the people. They're not willing to do that because of that arrogance, that stubborn, stupid arrogance, the one that gets in the way of change, creates that atmosphere. Anyway, I'm not going to waste any more breath talking about that, so I decided not to go and see, I guess, the mates that I had in mind. Instead, I'm just going to head back to the house and go and retire back to the comfort and security. And I at least do think, no matter how much of an incredibly negative atmosphere these other people create outside because of their stupidity, at least if I go home, I can cultivate, curate and create my own atmosphere. It's completely dependent on me and me alone. So I'm in control, at least, of that little piece of the planet. And that works a lot better for me. I don't need to be in control. I don't always like to be in control. But if faced with other people's sort of stubbornness and their unwillingness to give up their own sense of control, even when they're creating something that's negative, then I'd much rather separate myself from them and keep my sense of control in the positive, meaning no matter how hard they work to create this unpleasant atmosphere that seems to almost always be there, I will continue to work twice as hard, if not 5 times as hard, if not 10 times as hard, if not 100 times as hard, to create an atmosphere of positivity, one that can actually alchemically transform that incredibly unpleasant atmosphere that these idiots seem to constantly create with their stupidity. They're so stupid. I don't get it. You have to be stupid to turn the place that you live in into a negative place, into a hostile place. That is absolutely all the evidence that is needed to suggest the assuredness of their stupidity. If you make the place you live in a place that you don't want to live in, you are stupid. That's quite clear. An intelligent person would at least care about themselves enough to make where they are a nice place to be. That would show up as a sign of your intelligence. The fact that you've thought about the standard of living that you would like, and then you actually realise it's your responsibility to actually create that. So you don't look to anybody else to do it, you just do it yourself. That's a sign of intelligence. A sign of stupidity is to not do that, to do the opposite, to not care about where you are, to try and make it in any way you can less great than it could be. But I think this is why I say it's a health issue. I really don't think people have the vision to actually see what is possible, what they're capable of, and I really do think a lot of that comes down to travel. They've not been anywhere else in the world, they've not seen other places, and they've not seen how great it can be in all these other places to live, how good the quality of life can be. And because they have no comparison to compare where they are to anywhere else, they think this is great just out of pure not knowing what else is possible, what else is available. And there's so much more that is possible for a place to become and for people to become. And it can be so much greater than it is. But because these people are so focused on their small dramas, they don't see the bigger picture. And so they miss out on the possibility of living a life that is actually great. And so I can understand from that point of view that they're not exactly stupid, they just have a lot to learn. But I think in realising you have a lot to learn, you've got to realise that you don't know everything. And the best thing you could admit is that you don't know everything. That's a great possibility. That means there's a lot more to discover. That's a good thing. Okay, so I've escaped from the stupid people and I'm back home. I'm a little bit sweaty, I'm a little bit thirsty, but I'm glad to be back in the safety, away from the stupid people, because you never know what the stupid people are going to do. They're stupid enough to do stupid things. You know what I mean? So that was a good trip on the whole. Managed to get rid of the board games, managed to get rid of the books at the charity shop. The woman that was in the charity shop seemed quite stupid. I asked her if they wanted volunteers. She said no. She's stupid enough not to say, but give me your contact information in case we do in the future. Yeah, it just seemed like one of those things where even the sight of like a 6'2" man is like threatening her little fragile ego structure or whatever. And it's like it's quite common amongst women, the way they build up like these little sort of fragile ego structures, thinking that that's designed to like protect them from men or something, as if they would need protection from someone like me when they just don't, because I'm not going to do anything, because I'm not like that, because I'm not the kind of person that likes to engage in any sort of physical conflict. But yeah, there's always a power struggle at the top of hierarchies within businesses, and quite often when it's women, it's they come out with all this stupid stuff, all about, well, the current, obviously, the current stupidity that's sort of been mainstreamed and popularized is like, if you're a man, you're not allowed to do anything. Only women are allowed to do things. Like, it's just straight up sexist attitudes. So, yeah, I don't really support sexist attitudes amongst anyone. And the reason is because I recognize that I've lived a life as a man in this incarnation. I've lived lives as women in previous incarnations. I've lived lives as men and women, so that's where I associate my identity and my sense of self, is in the knowledge and the understanding of all that I have done in multiple incarnations. So I can say I am a man in this lifetime, but I cannot say I am a man. I have been a woman. I have been many different things. So how could I be sexist towards anyone? It doesn't make sense. When you realize that that's who you are, then all your sexist ideas will just disappear. But I do understand to some degree it is fear and physical intimidation. Not that I think I am fear-inducing or physically intimidating, but often the assumption is made that because of my stature, because of my height, because of my I get discriminated against because of my gender and because of my size. I get negatively discriminated against because of people's sort of instinctual reaction, and their thought processes go along the lines of like, well, they're bigger than me, so if it ever came to a physical confrontation, then they would be able to overpower me. So they see me as like being too strong for them to sort of dominate. And because they're run by egotism and like they just want to exercise power and authority over other people, they discriminate against anyone that is physically capable. And that means they only look for people who are physically incapable to actually work, because they feel secure and safe in their ability to control them and manipulate them. So, yeah, I mean, I just asked for a volunteer position, but I'm not interested in volunteering for someone like that anyway. You know, that kind of woman, that kind of person. But yeah, the discrimination against men obviously comes mostly from women. Obviously, because men tend not to discriminate against another man based on the fact that he's a man, because that's a shared characteristic. I don't discriminate against anyone based on their gender. I discriminate against people based on their attitudes, based on the contents of their character, based on how they act, what they say, what they do, how they come across. I discriminate against people based on that. But I definitely don't discriminate against anybody based on a characteristic that they didn't choose, like your gender. Nobody chose their gender, so it doesn't make any sense to discriminate against somebody based on a choice that they didn't make. If somebody made a choice to do something or to say something, then I think it's fair to have an opinion about that. You don't choose your race, you don't choose your gender. Most people understand that it's unfair to discriminate against people based on their race. Racism is largely understood to be not the way that people should act. I mean, I don't understand it from the perspective of the other side, I guess. Although, going back to what I said about previous incarnations, I do also believe that I have lived previous incarnations being, well, basically, I don't even agree with the concept of race. If there were a race, it would be the human race, which comes in many different sort of shades. I don't agree with the concept of there being white people and black people. I just disagree. I don't think that's true. I don't subscribe to that way of thinking. Watch me dance the night away. My heart might be burning, but you won't see it on my face. Watch me dance the night away.
Something, something do. When my heart beats, I'll never feel it, never feel it. When my world speaks, I feel alive, I feel alive. I don't play sad, don't you know about me? I can dance, I can dance, I can dance. Dance tonight. Atkinson, Atkinson, Atkinson. Dance tonight. I hate it when you leave me unattended, cause I miss you and I need your love. When my mind is running wild, could you help me slow it down? Put my mind at ease. Ding. Pretty please. I need your hands on me. Sweet relief, make me feel so pretty. Can you help me out, please? Exactly where I want me. Hey, underneath your body. Hey, I said if we took it there, I wasn't gonna change. But I don't know the words now. Yeah, garlic bread. I know that I seem a little stressed out, but you're here now and you're turning me on. I wanna feel a different kind of tension. Yeah, you guessed it, the kind that's fun. I hate it when you leave me unattended, cause I miss you and I need your love. When my mind is running wild, could you help me slow it down? Put my mind at ease. Pretty please, I need your hands on me. Ding, ding. Sweet relief, make me feel so pretty. Put my mind at ease, a trickle down my spine. How you look so pretty, please. Every single night, I need your hands on me. When your kisses climb, how you give me sweet relief. Make me feel so pretty. Would you help me out, please? Pretty please. I might do some more TikToks of me singing. See if they get any love. I like getting views on TikTok, but for whatever reason, I'm really not bothered about getting views on YouTube. Why is that? I'm not sure why that is. Funny that. Funny. I don't know what to do, so what do you do when you don't know what to do? Well, you make food, obviously. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to show you what I'm working with this time. If you give me a second, just got to take my pills. Alright, so first things first, I put some rice in a pan with some stock. And I'm just going to let that cook up. Then I've got John West tuna chunks in sunflower oil. Then I have got cured chicken breast. Then I have got mussels cooked and pickled. So we're going to have a combination of all of these together. Rice, tuna, chicken, mussels. And along with the stock, that should give that some flavour. I think it should be a good meal. It's not a combination I've tried before, but I do like to try new combinations. Wow, I've got loads of stock left. I've actually got 2 boxes of Knorr vegetable stock that are full, which is great. And then I've got 5 cubes
are just there individually. I've also got 2 bags of lentils up there, or is that 3? No, 2. 2 bags of lentils. And then I've got all the food that's in here. I've got however many cans of beans, 4, 8, 12, 24, 24 and 8, 32, 32 and 4, 36. Got 40 tins of beans there. So 40 tins of beans. If I say that a meal is I guess a meal, I don't know. How many tins of beans do you think I could eat in a day? I think based on my usual appetite, it would probably be around about 4 tins of beans a day. But if I paired that with rice, then it would probably be 2 tins of beans a day. And there was 12, 24, wait, 4, 8, 12. Wait, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40, 44. So 44 tins of beans. 2 a day with rice. So 2 a day, and there's 44. That would be 22 days worth of food. I probably wouldn't just eat rice and beans. I'd probably want to add something else to that. Although I could just eat rice and beans if I had to. I would probably add in also the stock and some oil, so that there was a bit more flavour and a bit more fat. So if that's 22 days, then how many peas have I got? Got 3, 6. It's got 6, 12, 18, 24, 30 tins of peas. 30 tins of peas. So that's probably like 15 days. So I've got 22 days plus 15 days. That's 37 days. And then everything else is sort of like the added extras to go with that. Guru Bhakti Yoga. Here I'm making what is in the pan there. I added beans to the rice. I added cured chicken breast, mussels, and tuna. Now it's cooking up. It's cooking it up pretty nice. I'm not going to go out again today, not to my knowledge. But you know, I am going to do some exercise. I'm going to lift some weights. I think that's what I'm going to do right now. 27 repetitions. I'm watching a Dua Lipa show and waiting for my phone to charge and waiting for this food to cook. Give it a stir. Don't want it to burn, but I would like it to cook up until it's dry, so all the liquid is gone. And there is some oil in there, so if I can get a bit of a fry on the rice, and I guess on everything, that'll be good. So I reckon that's got at least another 10 or 20 minutes. I've left it on a 6. So we'll see how that does. And yeah, at the moment, I'm just waiting to get back onto TikTok. I really enjoyed reading my book yesterday, so I think I'm going to read a little bit more of this book for the video. See if I can remember where I'm up to. I'll just start where I am. Tina's control freak spouse had no more sympathy with Jimmy's stylistic adventures than any of his predecessors. I cut him loose because he had all these pedals on a board for fuzz and distortion, Turner would recall. By the time he'd get through pushing the pedals, the solo spot would be over. In a couple of weeks, he was back with the Upsetters, where his disobedience to their dress code turned into open baiting of Little Richard. On the night of a big show at Huntington Beach, Rosalie curled his hair and he went on stage in a woman's blouse and black wide-brimmed hat of the kind Rudolph Valentino used to wear to dance the bolero in silent movies. When the troupe moved on from LA, he promised Rosalie he'd soon return for more drives along Sunset and Wingtip Touching. Sometime later, he sent her a letter asking for money to get his guitar out of hock, another reliable gambit with the opposite sex. She sent back $40 enclosing a photograph of herself, but never heard from him again. Travelling through the South was an even more tense experience than usual for a black roadshow on the cusp of 1965, as the Civil Rights Movement and the National Association for the Advancement of Coloured People, NAACP, came into confrontation with those sworn to perpetuate segregation at any cost. It was the time of the charismatic young demagogue known as Malcolm X, his call to black people to abandon pacifism and restraint for violent insurgency, and his assassination at a meeting of his followers in New York, the time when 3,000 peaceful demonstrators marching from Selma, Alabama with Dr. Martin Luther King at their head were brutally set upon by police with batons, tear gas and dogs, and when Sam Cooke, potentially the civil rights movement's most influential voice after Dr. King, was shot dead during a trivial altercation with the black manageress of a Los Angeles motel. Little Richard, usually travelling between gigs by air, could stay above the fallout from these and other related horror stories. But for his band, the affronts and threats from roadside restaurants and washrooms were redoubled. Pause that there. And I'm going to give another stir to the pot. And I know it's gonna be a long, long time, so lockdown brings me right again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh no, no, no. And this is what he's trying to see. I think most of the moisture is evaporating from that. It should start to become a little bit more fried, which is what I'm going for. Anyway, back to the book. I'll do another page or two, then probably one more stir, then I'll probably turn that off. Jimmy's frustration was not only with his job, but with black music as a whole. For the creative initiative was wholly with white pop, now termed rock, and suddenly dealing with all the big issues of the day, the Vietnam War, the inequality of society, even the segregation question itself. In reaction to the Beatles and the British invasion that came afterwards, dozens of white American bands were springing up, especially on the West Coast he had just left, who performed in unmatching garments like Britain's Rolling Stones under names even more outlandish than Beatles, such as Jefferson Airplane and the Grateful Dead. Theirs was a genuinely new music, openly acknowledged to derive from a man-made and still legal hallucinogen named lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD, which seemed to affect the very guitars, furring and distorting them in all kinds of intriguing ways, and inspiring lyrics like the poetry Jimmy had always scribbled in secret. But for now, even LSD bore a whites-only sign. Meanwhile, even the Chitlin Circuit's biggest names carried on in the same old way, with fizzing horn sections, raunchily upbeat lyrics, formation dancing, wide smiles, and pressed trousers. July 1965 brought Jimmy's first television appearance, backing a male vocal duo named Buddy and Stacy in Junior Walker's Shotgun for the Night Train show. Transmitted from Nashville, the footage can still be seen on YouTube, behind the dancing, smiling, well-pressed duo, dark-suited and bow-tied, ducking his head left and right in sync with his fellow sidemen, as if the shotgun is pointed at his head. It's as if the shotgun is pointed at his head. Okay, one last stir of the pan and then we'll turn that off. Alright, so that's off now. I'm going to read a bit more because I'm enjoying it. So, go back to the reading. His unpunctuality and sartorial offences continue to worsen until finally, after an appearance at the Apollo, he missed the tour bus to Washington, D.C., and Richard's road manager, brother, Robert Penniman, fired him, making clear that this time it was for keeps.
The Isley brothers good-naturedly took him back for a month's residency at a New Jersey resort, after which he returned to New York, all his pay from Little Richard either spent or eaten up by fines, and thus no better off than when he'd first arrived there 2 years earlier. I'm going to interject with that and say he's a lot better off than when he'd first arrived there 2 years earlier, because he's got 2 years worth of experience that he can talk about in order to get more work. He began looking for work as a studio musician, but could find it only with obscure artists and tiny record companies. A diminutive soul singer with a Little Richard-sized voice known as Mr. Wiggles hired him as uncredited backup for a series of singles on the Golden Triangle label. His contributions were never less than spectacular, especially to a talking blues entitled Homeboy, although one line that patently did not apply to Mr. Wiggles did so even less to him. Went to New York, made it good. Once again, his former Harlem girlfriend, Fayne Pridgeon, took him in, despite having since acquired a husband named Taha Carr. When three became too much a crowd in Fayne's tiny apartment, Jimmy moved on to a series of cheap hotels around Times Square, which in the Manhattan of that era could come perilously close to doss houses. He continued to write regularly to his father, half the time building himself up and half putting himself down before Al could, if Al should ever reply. "You may hear a record from me that sounds terrible," he wrote in August 1965. "Don't be ashamed, just wait until the money rolls in." The letter was signed Morris James, but he was now also using the names Jimmy James or Jimmy Jim. In October, he joined another R&B band, Curtis Knight and the Squires, whose frontman he had first met the previous year. He felt some initial qualms since Knight combined running the Squires with pimping, but freelance session work had virtually dried up. This time, the only travelling involved was to low-level gigs like George's 20 Club in Hackensack, New Jersey. He still had to wear a suit, this time a sparkly tuxedo, but Knight let him play his guitar behind his head or with his teeth as much as he wished, and the quintet contained one other serious musician, a sax player named Lonnie Youngblood, with whom he became close friends. That October, Knight and the Squires were signed by a white record producer named Ed Chalpin, who owned his own small independent label PPX, though technically Jimmy was just part of Knight's package deal with Chalpin. The producer was astute enough to offer him a separate 3-year contract to play and produce exclusively on PPX. For signing the contract, which he didn't bother to read, and which would cause him problems for the rest of his life, he received only $1, but was promised the first royalties of his career, 1% of the retail price of every record sold. Chalpin specialised in quickie cover versions of current hit singles, and one of the first assigned to Curtis Knight and the Squires was Bob Dylan's Like a Rolling Stone. Jimmy had admired Dylan since the latter's days as a folk singer and pillar of the civil rights movement, though it was not a taste generally shared by hip young Harlemites. In his early days there, he'd once persuaded a club's DJ to play Blowin' in the Wind, and had been ridiculed for liking that hillbilly music. Now Dylan stood accused of betraying his folk audience and the civil rights cause by switching from acoustic to amplified guitar to create his own languid, sneering brand of rock. But Jimmy loved Electric Dylan. When Like a Rolling Stone came out as a single, he had already spent every cent in his pocket at the time on its parent album Highway 61 Revisited. Even Chalpin's cheapo product and a third-rate R&B band could not stop Jimmy's transformative way, with covers shining forth. Dylan's sourly exuberant Electric Ode was meant to have been his final repudiation of the protest song. Now retitled How Would You Feel, it became just that, speaking directly to black Americans about the wrongs they suffered and their young men's obligation nonetheless. to fight for the country in Vietnam. Spoken, not sung, it was like rap 20 years too early. But at other times he could make no impression on Chaplin's raw material, as when he backed the Hollywood actress Jane Mansfield in a breathy ballad entitled As the Clouds Drift By, totally drowned out by its string section. Actually, he was lucky enough to be allowed near violins. Until recently, as his fellow Garfield High student Quincy Jones recalls, black arrangers had not been allowed to use strings, presumably because it implied a sophistication of which they were incapable. Towards the end of the year, an old syndrome revived when he was poached from Curtis Knight by Joey D and the Starlighters. They had shot to fame during the Twist craze as house band at New York's Peppermint Lounge, one of the Beatles' first ports of call on arriving in 1964. What had gone unnoticed amid all the Beatlemania and twisting was that Italian-American Joey D headed the first biracial pop lineup of 3 white musicians and 3 black, whose audience was predominantly white. He came to my house in New Jersey to audition. D would remember. He takes his guitar out. It was in an old sack because he couldn't afford a case. I said, play me something you like, and he plays some Curtis Mayfield. I tell him he's got the gig, and to celebrate he lights up a big joint. I had my 2 boys, aged 4 and 5, in the house, and my wife says, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" and throws him straight out. As he goes through the door, I look out the window and say, "See you Friday." The Twist might now be history, but nostalgia for the age of the bouffant and the hula hoop remains strong, and the Starlighters regularly played to crowds as large as 10,000. Though Joey was the star of the show with his oscillating midriff, he gave Jimmy plenty of room to play guitar behind his head or do the splits as the fancy took him. A countrywide tour during which Jimmy turned 23 showed the true scale of Joey D's innovation. For the dates included several in places where a mixed race band aroused even more detestation than an all-black one. To avoid trouble, they would stay in hotels up to 50 miles from the venue and take care never to leave the backstage areas during intermissions. A bad case of late-blooming acne put no brake on Jimmy's sex life. In Buffalo, 3 women from India who had not even seen the show clamoured to sleep with him, saying he had the face of a Hindu god. At another stop, a white woman volunteered to go to bed with all the Starlighters at once. She later recalled Jimmy as the only one with the good manners to ask if he should take off his boots first. One night he had a dream in the lavish technicolor of a Hollywood movie that 1966 would be when everything miraculously began to come right for him. It was in fact a very old dream dating back to when a little boy still known as Buster would see the numbers 1, 9 and 2 6s in his sleep, then awake with a strange feeling that I was here for something and that I was going to have a chance to be heard. But until well into the year, there seemed to be no sign of it. Much as he liked Joey D and enjoyed troistic romps with Indian ladies, he'd wearied of playing the peppermint twist in the same way. 1 2 3 kick, 1 2 3 jump, night after night, so had quit before Christmas. January found him back in New York, his pay all spent, and once again staring destitution in the face. It was a particularly harsh winter, especially for someone with no overcoat, nor even a lining to his jacket. He would huddle for warmth for hours in coffee shops, often unable to afford more than their 50-cent minimum for a glass of water, his long sprinter's legs carefully positioned to hide the holes in his ice-sodden shoes. Facing eviction from his hotel room for rent arrears, he still found the money for a postcard with a view of the Empire State Building to send to his father. "Everything's so-so in this big, raggedy city of New York," he wrote. "Everything's happening bad here." One day in a coffee shop tormentingly named the Ham and Eggs, his obvious predicament aroused the pity of a fellow customer who might have been thought even more pitiable. She was Diane Carpenter, a runaway from Minnesota whom the big raggedy city had forced into prostitution aged only 16. Despite the threatening presence of her pimp, Jimmy started to talk to her and was able to summon enough of his usual spirit to tell her she reminded him of his mother. This having had its usual effect, he moved into the tiny room where Diane carried on her trade. Her neighbours in the building assumed that he was her pimp, and indeed he sometimes had to act as her protector when one of her Johns turned nasty. Yet, despite the poverty and squalor of their life together, his Technicolor dream kept its hold. If ever they passed a jewellery store, he would tell Diane he'd buy her everything in the window when he was famous. Like others before her, she noticed the when rather than if. Diane was of the same concern to welfare authorities that Jimmy used to be, and at one point she was picked up by the police and put on a bus back to her parents' home in Minneapolis. When she found her way to him again, she became pregnant, thereby losing her former source of income, except from very peculiar Johns. Soon the two of them were reduced to shoplifting to survive. After they'd been chased by a storekeeper with a baseball bat and only narrowly escaped, Diane went back to hustling again without telling Jimmy. His anger when he found out unlocked a strain of violence he'd never shown before, manifested in a way which had caused him so much pain and fear. And not just as a child. Momentarily turning into his father, he hit her with his belt. As her pregnancy advanced, Diane decided to return to Minneapolis and have her baby there. The following February, she would give birth to a daughter, Tamika Loris, whom she registered under Jimmy's stage surname of James, although for the present making no claim on him for child support. While still living with Diane, he had begun seeing his first white girlfriend, Carol Cherokee, a step up the social ladder in being a call girl rather than a streetwalker. This made her relatively affluent, and in no time she'd been persuaded to buy him a new guitar, a Fender Jazzmaster, whose customised carry case put an end at last to that faithful old potato sack. Unlike most white women in those days, Carol was heavily into black music and knew many performers outside Jimmy's insular, predictable R&B set. Among them was a West Indian named Mike Quashie, who had been on the cover of Life magazine for introducing limbo dancing to America, when it was seized on by Chubby Checker as a successor to the twist, and would be an even greater influence on the future Jimi Hendrix than Albert Lee. Quashie, aka the Spider King, worked at a West Side club called the African Room, where he would go on stage in a bishop's mitre-shaped hat, a leather leotard and boots with 8-inch heels, and somehow manoeuvre his 6-foot 2-inch frame under a limbo pole only 7 inches from the ground. A technical pioneer too for the garish lighting, smoke pyrotechnics claimed by new psychedelic rock bands as their own LSD-inspired milieu, had been part of the Spider King's act for years. Like Albert Lee, Quashie refused to recognise the concurrently emerging hippie culture as for whites only, and swapped his bishop's mitre and leotard for Eastern caftans, headbands and mystical amulets, urging Jimmy to do likewise. But for the present, if he wanted to eat, he had to stick to a jacket and tie. The smash hit of the moment across singles charts of all pigmentation was Percy Sledge's pile-drivingly honest When a Man Loves a Woman. At the launch party thrown by Atlantic Records, a tuxedoed Jimmy with his new Jazzmaster backed Wilson Pickett in Pickett's own huge hit Mustang Sally, having already covered it many times with Curtis Knight and the Squires, but it wasn't long now before Pickett would be covering him. In April 1966, Time magazine published a cover story dubbing London the style capital of Europe and describing the explosion of youthful creativity that had taken place among its Victorian monuments and red buses, not only in American invading bands like the Beatles and Rolling Stones, but in fashion, art and design. With Time's story came a fresh wave of irresistible British singles, including Wild Thing, originally released in the US by the Wild Ones, now covered by a quartet of seeming Neolithic cavemen named the Trogs. Carol Cherokee found Jimmy practicing it in her apartment and already taking it miles further. By May, he was back with Curtis Knight and the Squires, but hated it so much that he soon quit again. His last appearance with them was to be at the Cheetah Club at 53rd and Broadway, A barn of a place, wallpapered in spotted fur and theoretically able to accommodate 2,000 people, but in their case never attracting anything like that in number. Here, where his technicolor dream seemed furthest away, it would finally start coming true. Alright, I'm going to stop reading there.
That food that I made turned out pretty good. Had a few bowls of it. I actually think it was a bit better after it cooled down than it was when it was hot. Anyway, I've just been reading my book on TikTok Live, and I think I had 46 viewers. That's good. Gonna put the heating on. And what am I doing now? I would actually like to read more of the same book. That's what I'm thinking. I've been pretty tired for a bit. So, I'm gonna sit up. I've not drank nearly as much coffee as I would do before today. Why haven't I done that? I don't know. It's nearly coming up to the point where I should bring this video to an end. But not quite at that point yet. Ugh. I'm tired. Well, I'm tired, but I'm not. It's like I'm cold, but I'm not. Everything is, I am, but I'm not. Whatever people say I am, that's what I'm not. That's the Arctic Monkeys. There must be some kind of way out of here.
Said the Joker to the thief. Everybody's trying to impress somebody. But ain't nobody trying to impress me. Not a single soul. See you tomorrow.